you guys, and welcome again to another RGI Easy Sewing tutorial. I am so glad that you could join us today for the session we're about to have. What we're talking about today is sewing tools. It's a video that we should have had maybe at the start, but we're going to do it now for you because we realize in any field that somebody is working, you need to be familiar with the necessary tools that you need to do the job. So come on, let's do this. On this table, we have a variety of tools that you will need if you plan to go into the sewing industry. We're starting off with our measuring tools, and I have here a tape line. It's referred to as a tape line, a tape measure, a measuring tape, and the measuring tape has measurements on both sides. On the first side, you can see your measurements in inches, and on the second side, you can see measurements in centimeters and millimeters. The size that you use is a matter of preference, so whichever one works for you is quite alright. The measuring tapes come in different measurements. There are those that are 60 inches long, you have 30 inches long, as well as you have 120 inches long. So the length that you take is really a matter of preference, but by way of advice, I would advise you to take one that is conducive to the type of work that you do. Take for example, if you are doing drapery, in that instance you have to measure doors, you have to measure windows. It's advisable to work with something that is longer, like 120 inches. But of course, if you are only taking body measurements, more often than not, a 60-inch measuring tape would suffice. It can be used for marking your measurements along your fabric, as well as if you are working with patterns and you are making a paper pattern, you can also use your measuring tape, your tape line, or your tape measure. Another tool that is useful in sewing is your ruler, and rulers come in different measurements. As you are aware, I have a 12-inch ruler here. You can also purchase a meter ruler which goes up to 36 inches long, and you will use your rulers depending on the length of the project that you are working with, as well as when you are making your patterns, or if you are doing freehand cutting and cutting directly on your fabric. I have here wider ruler, which is often used in quilting, and what I love about it is that it is transparent, and whenever I am working within this measurement range, it works quite well because you can always see through it whatever measurements you would have already charted out. So this I really love. It is useful. It is not a must-have ruler, but if you can get it, it will help you. Now, we have the tools that will help you to shape your garments. So we have the curve stick. This tool is used when you are shaping your garment, when you are working to get the curve along your abdominal section, or when you are looking for the curve along your hip area. This tool is very useful for that. Then we have the arm curve, which is much smaller. And again, this one is used when you are doing your arm curve, as well as when you are making your neckline. Now, in this instance, you notice that all of my rulers are separate. I do not have one of those rulers that are basically an all-in-one, where you have your curved side, you have your straight side. If that is the ruler that you have, then that works quite as well as having single rulers. It's even better because then, as far as storage is concerned, you don't have to store multiple rulers. You can just store that. Okay. So now we are going into our cutting tools. So here I have my 9-inch shears. Often people refer to the shears as a pair of scissors, but really your scissors is anything that is less than 6 inches long, and your shears is more than 6 inches long. So this one, my go-to pair, is 9 inches long. My students know that this is it's black, yes, but this is my golden scissors. Nobody touches this pair of scissors. And you also want to be very careful with it. You want to pay attention to the things that you cut. You want to pay attention to how you handle it, because you don't want to drop it, and all of that can affect the quality of cutting that you get. So we have the regular shears, and then here I have my pinking shears. The pinking shears, some people refer to it as the zigzag scissors, but really it's the pinking shears. In instances where you do not own a serger or an interlocker, this is an option for you. And just to show you the quality that you would get, the quality of your finished work if you are using the pinking shears, this piece of fabric was cut using the regular shears. So you will see that there is some fraying on the side. If this is something that I would have cut and handled for quite some time, there would be more fraying. In this case, this piece has been cut using the pinking shears. So you can notice that while the edge has a zigzag finish, as far as fraying is concerned, you don't see much of that. Okay, so that is one reason why you might opt for using the pinking shears instead of the regular shears, and that is if you do not have your serger or an interlocker, the same thing, which is going to give you a neat finish when you are done with your project, then you would want to use the pinking shears. And of course, if cost is a matter of concern for you, where getting a serger or an interlocker is concerned, then you would want to start off with your pinking shears, which of course is less costly. I have my nipper, which is used whenever I am on the machine and doing my sewing projects. It's much easier to handle as far as cutting loose threads and things like that are concerned. I also have this smaller one, just different scissors. This is your scissors, or this is a pair of scissors. And then of course I have my ripper. Your ripper or the ripper is used in cases where you make sewing errors. So right here I have my piece of fabric that I have stitched, and if I needed to rip this area, I would simply slide the ripper under a stitch, ensure that I got that out, and then, or I could open what I had stitched and go this way. So again, in this instance, I go between the lock stitch and I am cutting it. Okay? And of course, you always want to ensure that anything you rip, you remove the pieces of thread at that same time. Okay, so because I had already started removing the stitch on the outside, it's very simple, very easy just to take that all out. And then we have our marking tools. I do not have transfer paper that I can show you exactly how this tool is used. This tool is a tracing wheel, and it is used in transferring markings from your pattern to your fabric, or from your pattern paper to your fabric. So this is the tracing tool, and this is the tailor's chalk. Tailor's chalk is used for marking your fabric to place your measurements exactly where you would like them to be. When selecting your tailor's chalk, you want to ensure that the chalk that you are using is not going to stain your fabric permanently. So you may want to test the tailor's chalk against some sample fabric before you actually use it. Something else to note is that you can purchase tailor's chalk that has a wax finish that actually disappears once you iron over it. And then you have are of course very important. For one, if your sewing machine is not working, then this is definitely the option that you're going to have to use, as well as there are some projects that you will need to do some hand sewing for. So for example, if you do not have a hemmer, you're going to have to hand hem your garments to get a more professional finish. You will need to select the proper needle for doing that. If you are into embroidery, you will need to ensure you have embroidery needles for that. So you'll see this pack that I have is an assorted pack, and that just gives you variety for exactly what you want. So guys, these are basic sewing tools. Of course, there are much more that you would need depending on the particular project that you are working on, but I just wanted to give you all an idea of some of the tools that you will need to get started, at least to get started once you are decided on going into the sewing field. Feel free to leave a comment or a question in the section below, and of course we will respond to you to ensure that you know as much as you need to. Thank you so much for joining us for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and we will see you next time.